Season 1 for Black Ops 7 Zombies is here, and Treyarch kicked things off with a bang, bringing back the fan-favorite Ballistic Knife. If you've played COD Zombies since at least 2010, you'll already be somewhat familiar with what the Ballistic Knife has to offer, but don't click away because I've got a few tips and tricks for you that'll make these things even better than you remember. Before we get into it, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and turn on post notifications for everything Call of Duty Zombies. Also, this video marks the debut of a new series on the channel called Slap or Scrap, which is going to be a weapon/conversion kit review series that focuses on the good, the bad, and the ugly of whichever weapon we're reviewing, and if it's worth your time unlocking. With that out of the way, let's get into it. The Ballistic Knife can be unlocked for absolutely free by completing all of the Week 1 challenges here in Season 1. The challenges are all very straightforward and can be completed in about an hour or two if you dedicate your games to strictly knocking out the challenges. Once you do manage to complete all of these challenges, the Ballistic Knives will become equipable to your loadout in the main menu. What makes the Ballistic Knife a must-run every single game is the fact that it's a dedicated melee weapon this year, so you can essentially have the LGM-1 Wonder Weapon, a ray gun, and a bullet weapon all with Mule Kick, and still have the Ballistic Knife as your dedicated melee. Not to mention the fact that because it's a Season 1 unlock, it's separate from the Prestige system, meaning you'll always have this unlocked after you Prestige. I do have to mention though that as of right now, the only way to use the Ballistic Knife is by having them in your loadout, as they're not currently in the mystery box rotation. Treyarch, if you're listening, please consider making an exception to the no melees in the box rule this year, as players who'd like to use the Ballistic Knife in curse mode physically can't because there's no way to get them in either of the maps. Getting into the actual gameplay with the Ballistic Knife, the melee speed is relatively fast and the mobility is about on par with the regular knife. Damage-wise, especially in the low rounds, before you've gotten Pack-a-Punch, made rarity upgrades, and purchased Melee Macchiato, it's honestly a little underwhelming. If you're attempting to set up the Ballistic Knives in your game, I'd recommend using a bullet weapon until you actually have enough to Pack-a-Punch the knife. If you don't feel like using anything else, try to shoot the blade of the zombies to weaken it and then finish it off with another melee attack. Again, base damage is not great here, but you can definitely make it to pack exclusively using it. It just might be a bit of a slower process. When you do Pack-a-Punch it though, the Ballistic Knife becomes the serrated Seraph, giving you an obvious boost in damage, but also a few extra blades in case you forget to pick any back up. Now, if you're a fan of the classic Black Ops 1 and 2 zombies, you'll be relieved to hear that the serrated Seraph does retain its original hidden Pack-a-Punch ability of being able to revive downed teammates after shooting them with a blade. Having near instant revive blades is obviously the main attraction for the Ballistic Knife, as it comes in clutch for literally any situation in co-op. I understand they're not as useful in solo because there's no opportunity to self-revive with them, but they're still worth running in my opinion because of their movement speed, and the damage really picks up the more you upgrade it. I don't believe there's a swing speed boost when it's Pack-a-Punch, so I'd highly recommend trying to get Melee Macchiato as soon as possible. There's no physical machine for it on Astra Malorum, but it's one of the more common TED task perks, plus you can just spam a few perk purchases to get Wonder Fizz to spawn in if you don't get lucky from your trials. The Melee Macchiato augments I'd run to juice up the Ballistic Knife are either the Major Augment Espresso for a faster swing speed, or Vampiric Extraction to regenerate small amounts of your health per kill. I personally like having the faster swing speed on my melee weapons, but Vampiric might be the better pick for rounds 20 and up when the zombies start moving faster and hitting harder. For the minor augments, I'd run a combination of both Stick and Move for faster backpedal speeds after a kill, and Barista Brawl to get extra essence per kill. Regardless of if you're using the Ballistic Knife as your main in solo, or just having it in your back pocket for a couple extra revives in co-op, I really don't see any other reason to be running any other augments on Melee Macchiato besides these ones that I just put up on screen. As long as you keep the Ballistic Knife moving in terms of upgrading its Pack-a-Punch level, rarity tier, and building around it with perks, it can carry you into the 30s with ease. I will say it really starts to fall off once you make it into the 30s though. The flatline melee weapon still seems to do the most damage out of any of the 3 melees currently in the game, although your trade-off there is its much slower swing speed compared to the Ballistic Knife. But again, the main attraction for the Ballistic Knives is its revive abilities in co-op. You can, however, absolutely keep the Ballistic Knife viable past the health cap by equipping either Fireworks with the Starlight, Starburst, and Short Fuse augments, or Brain Rot with the Caustic Fumes, Super Serum, and Extension augments. Both of these ammo mods are extremely powerful and really give the standard weapons a good buff and power this year, pushing them past their initial damage limits. Now comes the question, do we slap or scrap the Ballistic Knives? Guys, I think you absolutely have to do the challenges to get the Ballistic Knife unlocked. I'm assuming if you don't do the challenges here in Season 1 at all, period, you'll go into the Armory, which you can get for XP later on down the road, but there's no reason to not go ahead and do these challenges. They're all pretty straightforward. If you're playing Astra Malorum, you get like 8 of the 10 challenges done just by playing without even really tracking or paying attention to them. The last 2 can be a little bit, like going out of your way to get score streak kills 10 times with 1 activation. That one can be a little bit tricky. But overall, I'd say it's definitely worth the time, not only because you get a ton of XP for these, but like I said, they're outside of the Prestige system. So when you do go ahead and Prestige and move up the ranks, you don't have to re-unlock these at any level. There's no perma unlocks involved here. They're an absolute staple for co-op You do not want to run any other melees in co-op besides these. One, because I just feel like the melees aren't as good as they were last year, even with, you know, Void Sheath, Ether Shroud, having some buffs, you know, if you spawn with decoys, whatever. I just don't feel like they're as good as they were last year in terms of their effectiveness, but these Ballistic Knives are an absolute must-have in co-op. They are not going to let you down. If you're in a boss fight and somebody goes down, you guys can see the clip here that I've been using probably 2 or 3 times already. You just shoot it at him. As long as you've got decent aim to put the knife right on your teammate, it's going to get him up. I don't think it actually keeps perks. He had aftertaste when he was down, so, you know, there's not anything like crazy there where, oh, if you trip pack it, it's going to keep your perks or anything nutty, but it's still really nice to have, especially when you're in a boss fight like Astra Malorum or even Vatherion. If your buddy goes down outside the truck, somebody just drives by and shoots a Ballistic Knife at him. Again, you only have to have these Pack-a-Punch 1 to get that Ballistic Knife healing ability, so even if you don't want to set these up as like an actual melee weapon where you're going to go all the way to Legendary Rarity, Pack-a-Punch 3, all you have to do is just go ahead and Pack-a-Punch it one time in co-op and you'll have that ability, so it's not like that big of a drawback. It's only going to cost you 5,000 essence for basically 6 instant revives. Now, as I mentioned, the one drawback to the Ballistic Knife, in my opinion, is really its solo abilities here. I still like it more than the flatline, just because the flatline swings so slow, and I feel like it's honestly a little bit wonky, too. I'd still personally be running this in solo, just to have on me. I don't really use the melees this year. Like I said, they're not as good as they were last year, especially now with Mule Kick. The ability to have 3 weapons in solo really makes this kind of like a, I don't want to say a redundant thing, because they're not going to kill Oscar very well. I'm assuming they'll kill the Zursa pretty decently over on Ashes of the Damned, but overall, guys, like I said, you are missing out if you do not go unlock these Ballistic Knives. I know we talk about FOMO all the time. You have 7 weeks to get these done before they become probably an XP challenge. I don't think they'll be lost to the void, but these are really that good. It really does bring you back to the OG Call of Duty Zombies days where you're playing with your buddies, somebody goes down and you rip the Ballistic Knives out. And honestly, they're better than they were back in the day. They do more damage. The Ballistic Knives used to fall off probably by like mid-teens, early 20s back in Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2. Now you can run them into the 30s, and like I said, you slap some good ammo mods on them, and you can run these into the 40s, 50s, even if you'd really like. But they're really that good. I would highly recommend going and getting these challenges done, again, because you do get a ton of XP. You can level up very quick with them, and they are outside of the progression track for prestiging. But that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the new little more informal series here. You know, there's no damage numbers, there's none of that, but Slapper Scrap is really just going to be for weapons that aren't like top tier meta, where I'm going to take them to each of the boss fights and get kills with them. Obviously, you're probably not beating either of these boss fights with only the melee, so we don't have to go and do those. But, you know, when we get those dual wield conversion kit for the Akita to make them more SMGs, we're definitely going to be running a Slapper Scrap for those. There probably won't have like a full dedicated video. It'll just be that more informal, like, here's what the weapon does, here's how you get it. Is it worth your time to go ahead and unlock? So in my opinion, personally, I would say the Ballistic Knife slaps, especially if you're a co-op player. There's no reason to not go and do these challenges. I would highly recommend getting in right now, playing Astra Malorum and grinding for it. Also, really quickly before we end the video, I know I'm kind of just dragging this on at this point, but there is a leaderboard event going on for Astra Malorum. They're much better than they were last year. If you finish in the top 5 of your individual leaderboard for Astra Malorum over the course of the next week, you will get an animated camo that, in my opinion, is better than a lot of the camos and mastery camos in the game. So if you guys got some time this weekend, if you want to burn some double XP, if you want to go try the Ballistic Knives out, if you want to get these challenges done, definitely be tracking your leaderboard as well, because the camo you get for top 5 is really, really solid, and it's something that if you don't get it here in that top 5, it's not coming back at any point the rest of the year. So I'd highly recommend going and hopping in the leaderboard event, trying to grind it out, use these challenges as an excuse to get in there and go for the camo as well. But let me know in the comments below if you think the Ballistic Knife slaps, or if you think it should be scrapped, if you guys have gotten it yet, or if you're going to be going for it this weekend. Have a good rest of your day. Stay safe, stay hydrated. Peace.